What if you could work 10 hours and make $100,000? How cool would that be? My name is Kris Krohn, and on this channel, I love sharing real estate, business ideas, anything that will help you become financially more abundant and successful to command your own financial future. One of my recent business adventures has required very little of my time, about 40 hours of setup, and it's already started paying me 6 figures every single month. So in this video, I'm going to break it down. I'm going to show how I did it, and I hope it'll inspire you to elevate your standards to attract the opportunities that can do the same for you.
Just scary, it's about to be legendary.
So making an extra $100,000 a month for 10 hours of work is nice, because if you do the math on that, 100,000, 10 hours, that's basically $10,000 an hour. And I know some of you are thinking, all right, did you get lucky? Was that like a fluke? Like, how did you set up a business and start making $10,000 an hour? And by the way, how are you only working 10 hours a month? These are all fair questions, and I'm going to answer it all. Really, I want to help you understand exactly what I did and how I did it, because I believe it's something that you can do. In fact, this one video alone, especially by the end of it, I think that you're going to understand a secret that most super experienced business people don't get. And it all comes down and starts with this conversation that you're very familiar with, which is, what's your value financially in the market? What are you worth? What can you demand? Now, before I can show you how to make $10,000 an hour, I want you to understand that where my life started was pretty much right here, 14 bucks an hour. I mean, when I was a teenager, that was old school. Like, I was a paper boy on a bike. And literally, when I looked at the $300-400 that I made a month and the time that I put out, pretty much came down to about $14 an hour. Ironically, fast forward a few years, and when I was in college, my first job was at a telemarketing center with a base wage, and with commissions, I got up to about $14 an hour. I clearly had a comfort level with my financial barometer, just like you do. There's a certain amount of money that you make that you're comfortable with. It's natural for you. It feels like it's just the way it is. We got to figure out how to break through that barrier, because I would have never made $10,000 an hour. And by the way, now more than that with what I'm about to show you, if I didn't first create permission. I just want to share this with you first, because this is actually really important. I broke free of my financial barometer when I set the goal to double my income each and every year, which meant that my first year I made less than $20,000. The next year I had a goal to make $40,000. And that first year was actually not very difficult, because the average American at the time was making about $44,000 a year. I was working full time. I'm now kind of quasi an adult, so why shouldn't I at least be able to make less than the average American in this country? In that year, I applied myself and I pushed the boundaries and I created more value for the company. And as a result, I got to break that $40,000 threshold. But I'd also spent a year practicing that. So when it came to the next year, I thought, man, I should just double it again. The reality is, I've been playing with the game of incremental growth for a long time. And I could show you how I went from $14 an hour to $28 an hour to $50 an hour to $100 an hour. But here's the truth. This last year, I did something that has shattered all records and went from incremental growth, which looks like this, to exponential growth. And exponential growth is where you start making many more times your past income. That's what I really want to share with you in today's video. And so to do it, there's ultimately 3 steps, 3 different ways of thinking. The first one is, you have to develop a standard. Now, like I said, in life, we've got standards for dating. We've got standards for how we treat the opposite sex. We've got standards for how we treat ourselves. We got standards for how much money I think I'm worth. And most of us believe that certain standards develop our character and ultimately determine destiny. But ironically, most of us have very few standards when it comes to money. And that's what I want to talk about. I decided that instead of focusing on, oh, what can I do that's worth $1,000 an hour or $3,000 an hour? I said, you know what? What can I do to be worth $10,000 an hour? And I've since pushed it. How can I be worth $50,000 an hour? How can I be worth $100,000 an hour? And all of those things are set in motion. But daring to set a really high standard, by the way, there's a K in here. It's not $10 an hour. It's $10,000 an hour. And once you know what the standard is, then there's ultimately 3 things that need to happen. So my brother Nick comes to me and he says, Kris, I just started this thing like 6 weeks ago. My brother's an online internet marketer. He generates leads online. And he basically said, I got curious. I bought some of that sticky paint called epoxy from Home Depot, and I wanted to paint my garage. I called up some company and it was $2,000 for them to do it. So I decided to do it myself. And by the time I was done, I thought, I wonder if anyone is generating leads for epoxy online. And this is going to seem super tangential, but I can't tell you how important this is, because what I'm talking about of the 3 steps is number 2, which is you got to figure out how to create value that matches your standard. And so my brother basically said, Kris, I found out with all of my marketing skills how to generate really inexpensive leads for epoxy. I'm spending $5, $10, $15 on a lead, and every 3rd, 4th, or 5th job says yes and books for $2,000 or more. And so he was making $10,000, $15,000, $20,000. And here's the best part. Someone else took the lead and called the person. Someone else gave him an estimate, and someone did the painting. My brother Nick did nothing. So he came to me and he was just telling me, bragging a little bit, how exciting it was that he developed another system. And I said, yeah, but you know what would be really cool? Something cooler. He said, what? I said, what are your plans with this? He says, well, every year I'm going to expand into a new territory, and we're going to keep growing the business. And I said, well, do you know how many territories are in the United States for this? He said, no. I said, there's about 3,000. And I said, you know what would be actually better? He said, what? I said, create a model where you license the system and get hundreds, thousands other people actually doing this instead of you. And people would pay $40,000 on up just to access the system. So my brother jumped on the bandwagon to basically test that out, and he found out that for very little money, he could find people that wanted to buy the system to have their own business. Well, since then, several people have gotten on board, and this is currently creating hundreds of thousands of dollars a month and growing each and every month. And all I did was give him a strategic idea, and then I worked with him to provide a couple of key resources. It took about 40 hours to get everything up and going, but currently I am putting in less than 10 hours a month, but this thing is producing 6 figures. Well, why is this working? Because I have a standard of $10,000 an hour. If I make $100,000 this month and I only put in 10 hours, that's about $10,000 an hour. Now that's actually lower than what my current standards are in real estate investing and a number of other things. But I want you to show you that we attract and filter opportunities based on what our standards are. Now, the only way that you're going to start making thousands of dollars an hour, tens of thousands of dollars an hour, hundreds of thousands of dollars an hour, and I believe my time will come when I'm making over $1 million an hour. But the 3rd and final thing that you need when you want to have a really high standard is you have to have automation. And automation and scale means an idea that doesn't require your time. This is where you become a business owner versus an operator. Tony Robbins talks about this a lot. He says, in life, you can be a business operator that works their guts out more than if you were just an employee working somewhere else, or you be the owner that someone else does the work and you get paid the cash. When I started this, I had a couple of things in mind. To my brother, I said, I'll help you put this in place, but you need to understand something. I'm not going to be putting time into the business. I'm going to be providing strategy and critical resources, and we're going to keep proving it out and expanding the model, but someone else is doing the work. That, my friends, is automation and scale, which means hiring other people to do the things that you can do. Some of us suffer from an idea that says we're the best person for the job. And I now start always with the mindset that says I'm the best person to start the job, and then once it's started, I'm out. And if I don't have a model that can pay other people to do it, and I don't have to, then I'm not interested in it, because I have standards. And my standards are not just on money. My standards are also on time. So what do you do with this information? Well, there's a couple of things that you can do with this information. First of all, if you appreciated this and you actually want to see how real this thing is that I created, there's a link below to A+ Epoxy USA. You can click the link and see exactly what we've done and how we're helping other people actually get the automation in their own business and actually create their own financial freedom. I think it's pretty cool. So do a little case study. Click the link and actually research it and look at it and say, wow, that's what they put together. So I did that because I want you to be able to actually get more behind the scenes knowledge and information. But the second reason why I put this out there is because this video has the ability to really change things for you if you reevaluate your standards in 2 areas. Number 1, what is your time worth? And 2, How much time do you want back in your life? Currently, I work part-time because I'm spending a ton of time with my family, my wife. I'm just enjoying their childhood and being there for them. So I have standards. I only work this many hours. My other standards are I make this amount of money. And by the way, every year I double or more the amount of money that I make, and I'm always working only the amount of hours that I want. It took me years to get here, right? But this is a shortcut idea for you. And the shortcut idea is change your barometer by first knowing where you're at, and then challenge yourself to go where you want to be. And it's the inception of an idea that now starts filtering your opportunities differently, where the higher you want to make per hour, you've got to say no way more often to things that you say yes to because they match your current financial barometer. If that connects with you, then I want to invite you to click the link below, check out more in depth exactly what I did, and join me on this next video regarding the 8 financial tasks that you want to achieve by the time you're 30 years old. Enjoy.